Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take the most fascinating personal stories, clear the noise, and bring you straight to the heart of the insights that truly matter.
Today we are immersing ourselves in, well, it's an extraordinary tapestry of family memory and profound loss. It's all captured by Whoopi Goldberg in her memoir, Bits and Pieces, My Mother, My Brother, and Me.
And this is so much more than a standard celebrity book.
Oh, absolutely. At its core, it's a detailed, loving tribute to the two people who really built the blueprint for the icon she became, her mother, Emma Johnson, and her older brother, Clyde.
And you can see that in the critical reception, It really shows that this book is operating on a different level. It's been called a rare gem, a poignant and deeply moving read.
Publishers Weekly, I think, said it was a salve for wounded souls.
A salve for wounded souls. Wow. That suggests that, by sharing her grief and her family's incredible resilience, she's offering comfort to other people who are navigating loss.
Yeah, it definitely strikes a chord. And I think part of that is because Whoopi, she's a seasoned professional writer, beyond just acting.
Right. We know her as an EGOT winner, a total powerhouse, but she's written so much.
So much. All her early solo shows, her comedy sketches, those iconic Oscar monologues. She's even written storybooks. There's a great adaptation of Alice in Wonderland with a black girl as the lead.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and books on aging, relationships, manners. But this one, Bits and Pieces, it just carries a unique weight because it really confronts the nature of truth itself.
Okay, let's unpack that central thesis because it really is the philosophical spine of the whole thing.
Right.
Whoopi basically says that none of us really had the childhoods we think we had. We only have these individual, super subjective and often unreliable memories. She points out that siblings born just 2 years apart can tell you about the same big event with wildly different details. The truth is just fluid.
And that uncertainty, that fragility of the past, is exactly what makes the book feel so urgent. It's like she was in a race against the clock and was motivated by these two devastating losses, one after the other.
She had to get it all down.
She had to. The first blow came in August 2010. Her mother, Emma, passed away completely unexpectedly.
An aneurysm, right?
Swift aneurysm. And the way she describes finding her is just, it's so poignant. Her brother, Clyde, had just popped out to get Emma the Sunday paper and a pack of her favorite cigarettes, more.
Right.
When he came back, she was gone. Just sideways on the couch, smiling, with an unlit cigarette still in her hand. A very calm, peaceful, but incredibly sudden end.
And that loss back in 2010, it just fundamentally changed Clyde.
It did. Whoopi says a huge vital part of him just seemed to vanish when Emma passed.
Yeah.
He lost his daily rhythm, his anchor.
And Whoopi thought she had, at least another 25 years with her brother.
Of course.
But then 5 years later, she's blindsided again when Clyde also dies suddenly from an aneurysm. And just like that, the family nucleus was gone.
It wasn't just losing a brother. It was losing her historian.
Yes, that's it. Clyde was her home base. He was the only person left who could verify their youth. She called him the only brain I had left.
And she would constantly question her own memories, asking him, am I crazy? Did this really happen?
And he was the one who could say,
It happened, sis, but
Not
you've got
bad.
the timeline wrong. It was during this time or that time.
losing that shared cognitive backup, that living witness to your entire life story. I mean, that's the engine of this memoir.
It absolutely is. She realized that Emma's memory, which was once this torch, this guiding light, had already faded to a flicker after 13 years. So the book was this active mission to solidify the memories of both of them before they just dissolved completely.
She even says at the start something like, nothing I have written in this book might have happened the way I say it did.
Which is such a profoundly honest way to begin. It's an acknowledgement that the only truth we really have is the subjective, emotional truth of how we remember things.
The powerful way to frame it, it's not just a memoir, it's an act of preserving a subjective legacy. So even though the memoir questions memory, the foundation of her childhood, forged in the Chelsea projects, that was undeniably real. Let's get into part 2 and look at the world that created Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah. So when she was born, Karen Johnson at the time, she came into a family unit that was already, as she puts it, a lockstep duo. Her mom, Emma, and her brother Clyde, who was 6 years older.
And the setting itself, it just screams resilience. They lived in a 5-room apartment on the 6th floor of this huge 12-story brick building.
Right around 26th Street and 10th Avenue in Manhattan. But what's really key is the sheer density and diversity of that place. They had about 2,400 neighbors in their complex alone.
Wow.
Whoopi calls it a vibrant, sometimes confusing, ethnic enclave.
So what did that look like exactly? What was the mix?
It was a true New York melting pot of the 50s and 60s.
Mm.
You had black families, white families, Chinese, Puerto Rican, Korean, Mexican, Italian, Jewish families. Just this cacophony of languages and cultures all sharing the same stairwells.
And crucially, let's talk about poverty versus how you perceive it.
Yes.
Because by any standard today, they were poor. But Whoopi says, as a kid, she didn't know they were poor.
Because everyone was in the exact same boat.
Exactly. Everyone was living on the margins, just getting by. That shared struggle was this great equalizer. You weren't singled out for having hand-me-downs. That was just life.
And Emma's whole philosophy was the direct counter-argument to any feeling of being trapped. This is the core lesson. She hammered this home.
What was it?
She told Whoopi, the confines of this neighborhood do not represent the confines of your life. You can go and do and be whatever you want.
Wow. That's giving your kid permission to dream on a global scale, even if you live in a 5-room apartment.
And she backed it up with this fierce self-sufficiency. Emma was a single mom who, unlike a lot of people around her, refused any government help. Whoopi is very clear about this. No child support, and she actively refused to apply for welfare.
Why? What was her reasoning?
It was simple and clear. If I'm able to work and take care of my own, then I should do that.
It's a prideful stance, but it's also rooted in reality.
Totally. She knew there was no safety net, no cavalry coming. She had to manage it all alone, and she saw self-reliance not as like a virtue to brag about, but as a basic tool for survival.
Okay, but this self-sufficiency leads to one of the book's biggest mysteries. How in the world does she afford these major cultural events? We're talking tickets to the Ice Capades, the Christmas Spectacular at Radio City.
And the 1965 Beatles concert at Shea Stadium.
The Beatles. I mean, even in the nosebleeds, those were not cheap outings.
It completely defies logic on a practical nurse's salary. Whoopi said she asked her about it constantly as an adult. Ma, how did you take us to see the Beatles?
And what did Emma say?
She'd just shut it down. Why are you asking me that? And she changed the subject. It's this beautiful, unsolved mystery of how she made that magic happen.
And those trips weren't just random fun. They were like a deliberate curriculum. They turned all of New York City into their classroom.
In the 60s and 70s, I mean, think about it. Pop art, classical ballet, Alvin Ailey, the symphony, civil rights marches, Shakespeare in the Park, all for a 15-cent bus ride.
And Emma was a genius at finding the free stuff.
A total genius.
Yeah.
She knew the free days at the Met, at the Museum of Natural History, and she'd send the kids even if she was working. She made sure they knew that high culture belonged to them too, regardless of their bank account.
And the music at home was just as diverse, this little tabletop record player.
It spun everything. You'd hear Lady Day, then Bing Crosby, then Pavarotti, then the Supremes, and yeah, the Beatles.
But she drew the line somewhere, right?
Oh, she drew the line at the Rolling Stones. She thought they were dirty. The Beatles were fine, but the Stones were just too rebellious for her.
That's hilarious. But she balanced that seriousness with real joy. I love the story about the trip to Rockaway's Playland.
Oh, the giant rotating barrel. It sounds like pure chaos.
Or describe it.
It's the three of them, Emma, Clyde, and Whoopi, just tumbling over each other inside this huge wooden barrel, screaming and laughing so hard.
That the guy running the ride had to stop it.
He hit the emergency stop and just stared at this crazy family, laughing hysterically, and basically kicked them off so they wouldn't break his ride. Those were the moments that, solidified that loving, secure little unit of three.
But behind all that joy, Emma's work life was incredibly hard. She worked the overnight shift, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Yeah, as a practical nurse in the pediatric ward at the French hospital, she chose that brutal schedule for one reason. She couldn't afford daytime childcare.
And that had a huge impact at home, especially for Clyde.
At just 12 years old, he's suddenly in charge overnight. And, as you'd expect, the apartment becomes the neighborhood teen dance club.
Whoopi says they'd sneak in around midnight, cranking up James Brown and the Temptations at 2 in the morning, teaching each other all the latest dances.
And little Karen, who was always awake, she was the unwilling witness. She didn't snitch, but...
Its evidence was pretty clear.
Oh, yeah. When you have 20 teenagers smoking cigarettes with the windows closed, the smell that greets your mom at 7 a.m. is all the proof she needs that something was going down.
And on top of these late-night adventures, Whoopi was dealing with a huge academic challenge.
Undiagnosed dyslexia, which she didn't understand until much, much later.
How does she describe it?
She says when she looked at a page, The letters would flip and jitter. They just wouldn't stay in order. So reading was physically exhausting, and she felt this intense shame about it.
But her solution was kind of brilliant.
It was her first great performance. She would secretly memorize the material as the other kids in class read it aloud. Her last name was Johnson, so she had like 6 or 7 kids go before her.
Enough time to get the key phrases down.
Exactly. And then when it was her turn, she had like I was reading it off the page. She fooled everyone.
But what's so telling is Emma's reaction when Whoopi finally told her.
No shame at all. Emma was completely supportive. She just said that Whoopi learned differently from other children, and that was okay. She just encouraged her to find other ways to process information. That acceptance was everything.
Even though that acceptance sometimes clashed with her strict side, like the scrambled egg incident.
Oh, the battle of wills.
Yeah.
Whoopi hated scrambled eggs, called them globby, mushy, wet.
And Emma was convinced she just hadn't given them a proper chance. So she leaves the plate on the table, no other food for breakfast, lunch.
And after school, Whoopi holds out for hours, sneaking candy from her room. The standoff finally ends the next morning when Emma just gives up.
But Whoopi realized later that it was about Emma's core belief. You have to at least try everything before you can say you don't like it. Okay, so Emma's resilience, her resourcefulness, it all makes the third section of this memoir just exponentially more shocking. Let's dive into her background and the trauma that completely altered her life.
Right. So first we learn a bit about her past. She grew up in Harlem, and her saving grace was her grandmother, Emmeline.
Her namesake.
Her namesake. And Emmeline was a huge movie lover. She'd take young Emma to the picture houses at 9 in the morning, and they'd stay all day watching classics like The Wizard of Oz.
So that's where the love of story came from.
It was more than entertainment. It was Emma's first real glimpse of a world bigger than Harlem, and it fueled a lifelong curiosity that she passed right on to Whoopi.
And we also learn about their deeper ancestry from that Dr. Henry Louis Gates show.
This detail is staggering. Whoopi's great-great-grandparents, William and Elise, were Florida homesteaders after the Civil War, who actually secured 40 acres and a mule for both of them.
Wait, for both of them? That's incredibly rare.
It's almost unheard of. Only about 6,000 emancipated black people became landowners across the entire South. It just proves that this fierce entrepreneurial DNA ran deep in their family.
Emma's own personal life, though, was complicated. Her husband, Robert Johnson, Whoopi's dad, was gay.
They separated, but she never divorced him, and she never dated anyone else. Whoopi thinks that despite everything, she might have seen him as the one great love of her life.
This ability she had to just endure, to manage these complex realities alone, it was all shattered when Whoopi was 9.
This is the moment the memoir just stops your heart. Whoopi comes home from school one day and finds her mother completely distraught in the hallway. Hair a mess, wearing a trench coat over a slip, just muttering to herself.
And then the unthinkable.
Yeah. Whoopi watches as her mom goes to the oven, turns on the gas, opens the door, and puts her head inside.
Oh my God. As a 9-year-old.
Can you imagine? It's terrifying. But 9-year-old Whoopi just reacts. She runs over, grabs her mom around the waist, pulls her away, and calls the neighbor.
And then the paramedics come.
They come with a gurney. Emma is loaded into an ambulance for Bellevue Hospital after a severe nervous breakdown. It's a whole public spectacle, with neighbors watching from every window.
And Whoopi tried to get in the ambulance with her.
But they stopped her. Told her kids can't go to hospitals, and then just silence.
For how long?
She didn't see her mother again for 2 whole years.
2 years! And no one explained anything to her.
Nothing. Her anchor was just gone.
Yeah.
And this trauma is what created that mantra she adopted. Don't ask anyone for anything. Be good. Don't cause any trouble. Stay to yourself. She learned fast. The only people she could count on were herself and Clyde.
And when Emma finally came back, she was different.
Immediately. Palpably distant. She looked and sounded the same, but her behavior was just off. Whoopi calls it an invasion of the body snatchers effect. The container was there, but a stranger was inside.
How so?
She was hesitant about physical touch. She seemed to look at her kids with this polite, puzzled distance, like she was trying to figure out what she was supposed to do for them. She wouldn't even leave the apartment on her own.
And the reason for this was kept secret for decades.
This is the reveal. 40 years later, Emma just casually mentions in a conversation that when she got home from the hospital, she didn't know who her kids were.
Wait, 40 years later, that must have just shattered everything.
Everything. The reason. Because she was still legally married, her husband and her grandfather approved her treatment. And at Bellevue, she had been subjected to experimental electroshock therapy.
Whoopi calls them brain-altering treatments.
And the result was complete amnesia. She had, and I quote, no memory of her previous life, including her children. She spent years trying to figure out who she used to be.
Without telling anyone the truth.
Can you imagine the sheer strength that took? To pretend to be a mother, to function as an adult when your entire past has been wiped clean? She had to just watch her kids, learn their routines, and slowly rebuild the identity of Emma Johnson.
And that experience led to a choice that ultimately, contributed to her death.
It did. Emma lived in constant paralyzing fear of being institutionalized again. She vowed to never go back to a hospital, never see a doctor, never see a dentist again. She was determined that no one, especially not doctors or male relatives, would ever make decisions for her again.
And that vow, it had fatal consequences.
Tragically, yes. After she died, the doctor told Whoopi and Clyde the aneurysm probably wasn't her first brain issue. She'd likely had smaller strokes before. And Whoopi realized that a few years earlier, on a FaceTime call, she'd noticed Emma's face looked swollen on one side.
And Emma just brushed it off.
Said it was a bad tooth. She refused to get help, sticking to that promise to herself until the very end.
That is the ultimate heartbreaking tragedy of self-sufficiency. Clyde felt so much guilt.
He did. He thought he should have noticed. But Whoopi told him, Emma raised us to respect her autonomy. She made her choice. She prioritized her freedom over everything else, no matter the cost.
So the story then shifts dramatically in part 4, from the projects and this incredible trauma to fame, to ego-winning fame. And that self-sufficiency Emma had to build, it translated directly into Whoopi's drive.
Absolutely. Her career launched out of the Hudson Guild Theater, and eventually she developed her huge solo show, The Spook Show, while she was working in the Bay Area.
And the Spook Show was the real turning point. It wasn't just stand-up.
Not at all. It was deep character work. She took on tough subjects, She had a character who was a street addict named Fontaine, another who talked about coat hanger abortions.
Yeah.
It was raw, risky stuff.
And then came the review that changed everything.
Mel Gusso
Yeah.
in the New York Times. That review was like an accelerant, sold out shows, and it caught the attention of one of the biggest names in the business.
Mike Nichols.
Mike Nichols. He saw the show and was so moved he basically took her under his wing. He was especially struck by the humanity she found in her characters and by a reference she made to Anne Frank.
A subject that was very personal for Nichols.
Deeply. He was a Holocaust survivor. He left Germany on the last boat in 1939. So he didn't just help her. He essentially fast-tracked her success. He brought her straight to Broadway in a show just called Whoopi Goldberg.
And he got her an apartment, insisted her mother move in. He understood she needed that home base.
And opening night was. It must have been surreal. Her dressing room was flooded with flowers from people like Diana Ross, Bette Midler.
She got a huge framed caricature from Al Hirschfeld.
The legendary artist. And for people who don't know, Hirschfeld was famous for hiding his daughter's name, Nina, in his drawings. Whoopi's apparently had 40 hidden Ninas.
40.
For the 40 characters she played in her show. It was this massive validation from the New York theater world.
But the best gift that night wasn't the drawing.
No, it was advice from Paul Simon. He pulled her aside and just said, savor this moment. He said he and Garfunkel never really enjoyed their initial rise to fame, and he regretted it. And Emma immediately co-signed that advice.
And Emma and Clyde, they remained her anchors through all of it. When her career blew up in the 80s, she asked Emma to move to California to help raise her daughter, Alex.
And Emma's move is so revealing. It links right back to the trauma. She took only 2 small brown shopping bags.
That's it.
That's it. And critically, she dropped her house key down the incinerator chute and left everything else. The books, the Beatles albums, everything from her old life.
She was erasing it. She needed to be free of that life she had to painfully rebuild.
Exactly. And Clyde, he transitioned right into the celebrity machine with her. She hired him as her driver and assistant. He was her ace in the hole, her filter, her scout.
It was more than just driving, right? It was protection.
Oh, yeah. Whoopi says he could read her face instantly. If she was uncomfortable, he knew. He'd go into events first to, as he put it, see what's going down, filtering out all the chaos before it could get to her. He brought the street smarts of the projects to Hollywood.
And that led to some incredible encounters for Emma and Clyde. Whoopi says her mom's inner sex pot only came out for very specific people.
The Marlon Brando story is pure gold.
He just called her, liked her, and showed up at her house.
Unannounced. And starts playing Stardust on her piano. When Whoopi introduces him to Emma, Emma just transforms. She becomes this sultry queen of Sheba, extending her hand for Brando to kiss. Whoopi was floored.
And Clyde's reaction.
The total opposite. He treats Brando like an old neighborhood buddy, hugging him, hand-slapping him. And the second Brando leaves, Emma and Clyde just start screaming and dancing, basically telling Whoopi, "God damn, I guess you're famous," because only a real star gets a house call from Marlon Brando.
The White House visit was also a huge moment for Emma.
Especially meeting President Bill Clinton. She was thrilled because he was a huge supporter of the Head Start program.
Which for her was not just policy, it was personal.
Exactly. For a woman who'd been a teacher and a nurse and lived through the poverty of the projects, Head Start was empowerment. Whoopi said her mother just glowed talking to the president for 10 minutes. It was like a culmination of her life's work.
And Whoopi's career itself was a testament to that persistence Emma taught her. I mean, Spielberg took a huge risk casting her in The Color Purple.
A colossal risk. She was the only major cast member with no prior film experience. And that struggle continued. So many of her big roles were originally meant for other actors.
Burglar was for Bruce Willis, Sister Act for Bette Midler.
Fatal Beauty was for Cher. She had to fight constantly to be seen as a versatile leading performer.
And Ghost is the perfect example of that. They didn't even want to see her for Oda Mae.
They said she was too well known to play a struggling psychic. It was Patrick Swayze who fought for her. He flew to Alabama just to read with her to prove their chemistry. His advocacy got her that second Oscar nomination and her first win.
And after that win, she gave him the best advice of her career from Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah, Taylor told her something really practical. She said to ask the studio for a specific, valuable gift for every film she made.
Like a chronicle of her career.
A physical chronicle. Taylor pointed out that Whoopi's work would put her agents' and managers' kids through college, and she needed something tangible to show for it. It was permission to value her own work.
And Taylor was such a role model for using that fame, too.
A huge one. Her work on the AIDS crisis in the 80s, when everyone else was scared. She forced the government to pay attention. She gave Whoopi a powerful template for how to use her platform for good, a trait she absolutely got from Emma.
Moving into the final part, all that success, that strong family foundation, it just couldn't protect her from the depth of grief. Losing Emma, she said, was like losing her guiding star.
And then losing Clyde left her feeling completely alone, like an orphan and a standalone adult. She just wasn't prepared for that shock of having no one older than her left in the world.
She talks about the physical symptoms of grief so candidly, this fog or numbness that settled in her body.
And this sharp resentment. She actually found herself thinking, why did y'all leave me here? She had to actively fight the urge to just hibernate, to stop.
And that connects right back to Emma's core lesson, doesn't it? You have to pull yourself together and get shit done.
She had to invoke that self-sufficiency just to survive it. The only way forward was through motion.
The memoir is also so raw about the cost of her fame on her family, especially with her daughter, Alex.
Yeah, the moment Alex gets pregnant at 15, years later, Alex admits the real reason. She said she wanted one person in her life, the baby, who didn't know who Whoopi Goldberg was.
It was a form of revenge.
Revenge for Whoopi's absences, which must have been so hard to hear.
But Emma, the ultimate pragmatist, just stepped right in.
Oh, she did. Whoopi was freaking out, saying the pregnancy would change everything for Alex, and Emma just shot back, referencing Whoopi's own activism. I didn't realize you were just marching only for your choice.
Wow.
If it was Alex's choice, Emma was going to support it. And she did. She was the steady hand for both of them, making sure the next generation had that same stable foundation.
Emma always had that grounding advice. Whoopi tells a story about trying to apologize for being an asshole kid.
And Emma just shrugs it off. All kids are assholes at some point.
But then she follows it with that profound observation.
I looked in the mirror one day and I saw my mother coming out of my shirt. Same will happen to you. And Whoopi says now she finds herself looking and sounding more and more like her mother every day. The legacy is physical.
And the memoir really stresses how important it is to prepare for loss while people are still here. Emma was so practical about her own end-of-life wishes.
So direct. After a friend died, she just declared, I don't want to be put in the ground and take up space. Just put me in the microwave. That unsentimental approach is why Whoopi advises everyone to have these conversations early, not when you're drowning in grief.
But the practical aftermath was still so hard. After Emma died, she trusted Clyde to handle her things.
And it wasn't until Clyde died 5 years later that Whoopi went back to the house and realized
he hadn't touched a single thing.
Not one thing. Everything was exactly where Emma had left it 5 years before. He was so emotionally attached, so paralyzed he couldn't bear to dismantle her life.
Which leads to her most practical advice.
Siblings should go through the belongings together, box it all up, wait a full year, and then decide what to keep. Time, she says, is the only thing that lessens that acute attachment.
And ultimately, the way forward is to choose celebration over sorrow.
Find a way to celebrate their life, and crucially, to laugh. Laughter, she says, lightens everything. It lets you breathe.
Her final vision of a perfect weekend with Emma is so specific and loving, showing her an electric car, taking her to her house in Italy.
Smoking joints on the beach together, and the final touch is just so perfectly Emma. Taking her for a manicure and making sure she's got a metallic gold color.
That little bit of luxury and dignity.
It's the details she would have loved the most. And the lasting message, the final lesson Emma gave her, was about relentless forward motion. It can't be about me not being there. It can't be about your brother not being there. This is about how you're still there. What are you going to do?
Whoopi's entire existence is the legacy.
What an incredible journey this memoir is. I mean, from the grit of the Chelsea projects through the silent trauma of Bellevue, and then this completely unlikely path to success. It's a real testament to a mother's vision.
And her refusal to be defined by her limits, it really makes you rethink what self-made success even means.
And it keeps coming back to that idea of self-sufficiency. Emma and Clyde taught her you have to just figure it out and move forward. But that inheritance, that need to get shit done internally, is something Whoopi has had to really examine.
Especially after losing both of them.
Right, and that's where the depth is. She talks about how she still watches the world so closely, especially political shifts. She connects it back to lessons from elderly Jewish Holocaust survivors she knew in the projects.
The ones who told her to always keep your eyes very peeled.
Yes. They warned her that if rights start being taken away, if it happened to them, it doesn't mean that it can't happen here.
That vigilance, born from trauma, really informs the final question of the book, which is about balance.
It is. On one hand, you have Emma's lesson. Pull yourself together, function, don't ask for anything. But on the other hand, Whoopi has had to learn, through decades of suppressing her own trauma, that sometimes you have to pause. You have to talk. You have to seek help.
Otherwise, the pain becomes immobilizing.
Exactly. And that, I think, is the true complex inheritance from Emma and Clyde. And it's the final provocative thought for all of us. When you're facing deep challenges in your own life loss, career hurdles, whatever it is, how do you find that balance? The balance between fierce, practical self-sufficiency and the vulnerability you need to pause, connect, and accept the help you need to actually heal. It's a tension that just defines the human experience.